What I had done is one of the classes that I made up was just experimenting with materials and textures. So I love textures. I don't know why I love textures, I just love textures. So what I did is I had prints made of 15 panels. I said I would like to, instead of doing 2 big pieces, can I do 10 smaller pieces? And my portfolio teacher said, if you can make it 15, yes. I said, fine. So I drove to my parents' house in Memphis, and my dad and I made 15 panels, 24-inch square panels. We made those panels, I brought them back, mounted them all, and I put wax on them, because wax was one of the things that I played with. I had this visual of what I wanted this photograph, photo encaustic, and I loved it and whatever, but I was using wrong materials and whatever. So I made the 15 pieces, and I had 15 pieces in my and they were on wood panel, and it looked like they should be in a gallery or whatever. Right after I graduated, I emailed every gallery in Atlanta. PB&J contacted me, and Kylan Art, and my price point was too high. Kai from Kylan Art said, we're having a big group show, bring me a couple of pieces to look at. Took him a couple of pieces. He said, great, how many do you have? I said 15, and he's like, okay, bring like 6 of them or whatever. Yeah, and I owe a lot to Kai, because he really gave me the time and the space to get better. I wanted to do something creative forever, but my parents weren't supportive, and General Motors happened, and then you get a pension, and it's job security, and you get benefits, and that's why I turned to drugs. I used my I hate life as an excuse. Because early on, I was slamming NyQuil right out of high school. I had the addiction gene. I don't know. The only thing that I could think of is I am just generally unhappy with reality, whatever that is. And now it's just manifesting itself in different ways, because I have no interest in mood altering substances or anything anymore. And I was very reactionary. It wasn't a lightning flash moment, and I don't know when it happened. Like if you were playing with your Army guys, your G.I. Joes, or your cars, or any of that stuff, there is an element of imagination that's required to create the world that you're trying to put these toys in. You do know that they're toys, and they're not realistic, and so you have to invent those worlds for these things to be in. And so then I got into music. I played trumpet for years. It was really just hey, we have this band program at our school, and if you want to do it, then pick an instrument. And then I was going to go to school for music. 95, 96, I went to college for music. Didn't like it, and that's where actually my addiction started. I think it was a rebellious thing. And had freedom to do what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted, which was a disaster at that age. I was disillusioned in college and dropped out and just kind of floundered for a bit, and moved back home, became a waiter at a country club, and took some classes at Bowling Green. They had a satellite campus. It was basically a community college that Bowling Green State University bought.
And this is in what?
In Sandusky, Ohio. Worked at the country club and just did everything. Worked as many hours as possible, did as much as possible. Bus tables, waiting tables, worked the snack shack out in the middle of the golf course.
When you were doing country club, your dropout, move home, country club work, met friends, which we'll go back to. Were you doing any music, photography, painting? Nothing.
No. So we knew that General Motors was coming, rumors and all of that, and it was a lottery system. It's going to be a lottery system, and so I just kind of did that until it happened, and then I got hired in 1999.
As
Just blue collar, hourly. At that point, I was like, I could do culinary school, I could do something like that, and they said no, absolutely not. You're not going to do anything. You're going to go work for General Motors, and you're going to get the steady paycheck and the benefits and the pension.
so you went to work.
Went to work. The part would come in, and this arm would put it in the machine, and then it would start spinning, and this tool would come in, and it would cut off the metal, and then it would take the part out, put it in the thing, and it would go down and get measured and gauged. And if it was within tolerance, it would pass and the gauge, and it would go on. So every 300 parts, I had to change the tooling and do quality checks.
Right.
Every hour, about every hour. And so basically, I would sit there and do crossword puzzles for the actual amount of work that I was required to do was probably 10 minutes per hour. I did that from 99 to 2004. I was making $30 an hour. I could go out in the parking lot, take a chainsaw, cut my arm off on purpose, go to the hospital, they'd sew it back on, and the only thing out of pocket would be $2 for my pain medication. Had best benefits in the world. But anyway, I worked there. It was basically 2 or 3 months that I was working there, and my transfer to Atlanta happened. So I bought up a bunch of drugs. Of course, my dealer was in the plant, and came down to Atlanta and went to the orientation and started working. And it was hard to find any drugs here. So, but I eventually, found a connection and.
Apartment.
Yeah, I lived in an apartment right over on Peachtree Corners Circle. And I missed 3 or 4 days of work after being there for maybe 3 or 4 months. And I called the EAP rep there and I said, look, I have a problem. I relapsed on my way down here. What do I need to do? And she says, this is great. Thanks for calling me. Boom, put me in a 30-day inpatient. Did 30-day inpatient and then did 3 months of outpatient. But the outpatient, I was back to work. So I was out for a month and came back, and it was great. When I called her, I was done. In 2005, some rumors started spreading that General Motors, this was about that time they had they were about to have the financial crisis, General Motors. That happened. They offered buyout. So I got a lump sum after tax or whatever. I got 50 something, paid off my car, went to school, and just basically had from 2000, late 2005 to 2010, no job, no income, nothing. At this point, I had met Jen, my wife, and she was supportive and super awesome.
Supportive of art school or just?
She was just of me in general. I had a camera when I came down here. I had a Nikon N80, 35 millimeter. Yeah, I had a camera and I took a lot of pictures and stuff. That was probably why.
Pictures of what? And the reason
anything really. I all the art shots, the car behind you in the side mirror.
How old were you when you went to start Art Institute?
Okay,
Roughly.
That would have been 2006, so 28 or 29.
Okay.
It was studio work, tabletop, building your sets, lighting, doing those things, doing it right, just at the transition from film to digital too. I remember telling other students, I was like, these digital cameras are going to completely replace film. No one will be using film in commercial work. It will be relegated to being a fine art niche thing. And it was like, they'll never develop that technology. The sensors will never get good enough to do the commercial work with the detail that we're looking at. You're crazy. And it was like, okay. I did a lot of, this is important, I think, for photography students. I would assume for any art student, but in my experience, photography students is to look at stuff. Just look at it. Lots and lots of stuff. 2001: A Space Odyssey, that kind of stuff. It's like kind of mind benders a little bit. Those were my favorite kinds of movies: Pulp Fiction, Memento, and which is interesting because I don't watch any television or any movies anymore. I crushed school.
Right.
Like 3.8 GPA, best
'Cause you wanted
portfolio. Like if they had valedictorian, it would have been valedictorian. Yeah, and it was because I knew what I wanted to do in terms of creativity. An assignment, you need to go out here and you need to spend 3 or 4 hours carrying this heavy stuff, these light kits and cameras, and fuss with the camera, and things not go your way, and then things work out, and then you get the shot, and then you have to take your film, and you have to go to this place to do all that. A lot of younger students were bitching about it, but I had get up in the morning, go to work. I had all that, that experience.
And now you're up and animated, and your eyes are, and like, it's kind of cool to see, like, that was your...
Right, and I think that's kind of an explanation of that life experience, because when I was like, that was how that first part of life was for me. It was like, ugh, it sucks. I really don't have any affinity towards it. Like, I think my life started when I started going to school and I met Janet. I would do my classes and I would just go be bad at Photoshop. Just failed. This doesn't work. And you're talking about 2006, 2007, 2008, or 2006 to 2010. So YouTube started, I think, in 2006 or 2008. Now, if I don't know how to do something, I can just... So it was trying to figure it out.
So how did you make it towards animals?
All of the things that I utilize have a duality in meaning. One's utilitarian and one's metaphor. Toys and animals are easier to deal with than people. There's less complication in terms of copyright, releases. A horse doesn't have to sign a model release.
Right. Would you rather people?
Not at this point.
Okay.
And the animals are a metaphor for people anyway. I can get the message, I can
Right.
express that in a way without overcomplicating it with red tape, people, releases, stuff like that. So, yeah, Maggie Taylor was a huge influence. The surrealists, generally, primarily Magritte, with the bowler hat and the apple in front of his face.